The jungle is one of the oldest and most unexplored places on Earth. Dense forests where sunlight barely reaches the ground, and where strange creatures can remain hidden for centuries. Deep in these remote environments, explorers and cameras have captured animals that look like they belong to another age. What you're about to see are some of the most prehistoric-looking creatures ever filmed in the jungle. River giant. Two men were moving slowly along a narrow river in the Amazon, their small boat drifting close to the muddy bank, while one of them filmed the forest ahead. Nothing unusual at first, just brown water, dense trees, and the quiet hum of insects. Then, something long appeared along the shoreline. At first, it looked like a fallen tree, lying partly in the water. But the surface shifted. The shape slowly lifted, revealing a thick, smooth body stretching across the river's edge. It was far larger than any snake they had seen before. The boat kept drifting closer, while the camera stayed fixed on it. For a moment, nothing moved. Then the body rolled slightly in the water, as if adjusting its weight. The video ends there. Canopy serpent. A small boat moves slowly along a jungle river, while someone records the trees hanging over the bank. At first, the frame shows nothing unusual, just dense green branches leaning over the water. Then, the camera lifts slightly. Something thick is stretched across the canopy. It looks like part of the forest at first. Then, the shape resolves. A massive snake draped through the upper branches, its body running through the foliage, like a heavy rope between trees. The head hangs forward over the river. The boat keeps moving, while the camera stays fixed on it. The body disappears deep into the leaves. Riverbull. A small camera boat is moving slowly along a wide jungle river when the person filming notices something ahead in the water. At first, it looks like a pale rock breaking the surface. Then, the shape lifts slightly. Horns. Long, curved horns rising above the river, while the rest of the animal stays mostly submerged. As the boat drifts closer, the head becomes clearer. It resembles a bull, but the scale feels wrong for anything expected this deep in the Amazon. Only the top of the skull and the horns remain visible above the water. The animal barely moves. It just holds position in the current while the boat continues drifting past. River hybrid. Late afternoon along a shallow bend in the river. A few locals notice something standing at the water's edge before sunset. At first, they assume it's a fisherman, but it doesn't move, even after almost an hour. When they approach quietly from upstream, the river flows normally. Reeds move softly in the breeze. Then, someone whispers that the figure isn't human. From the waist down, a long scaled tail rests in the mud. Above it, the torso looks human. Broad shoulders, arms hanging still. The head turns slowly toward the river. A phone begins recording. The video later shows 8 seconds missing. Mud extraction. A construction crew is clearing a flooded patch of ground near the edge of the jungle when an excavator bucket lifts something heavy from the mud. At first, it looks like a thick tree trunk, dark, smooth, covered in wet soil. Then the mass bends. The operator freezes inside the cabin while the bucket hangs in the air. What's dangling from the metal teeth is a massive snake, an anaconda, but far larger than anyone expected to see in a shallow worksite. Part of the body slowly coils against the bucket. Workers nearby step back without speaking. The machine lowers slightly. After that moment, the video cuts. No one returned to that exact spot. River Watcher. A wildlife blogger is filming birds along a quiet bend of the Dniester River late in the afternoon. The light is soft. The water moves slowly. Then the reeds ahead shift strangely. The camera settles on a large silhouette standing in the mud. At first, it looks like a horse, but the neck is far too long, smooth, almost serpentine. The skin reflects light in faint reptile patterns. Its legs end in wide-webbed feet, half buried in the bank. The head lowers slightly toward the water. Ripples form outward. When the creature steps forward, the river parts quietly around it. Moments later, it disappears beneath the surface. River emergence. Show clip. A small transport boat moves slowly along a wide muddy river under the late afternoon sun. The engine suddenly sputters and dies. The boat begins drifting sideways with the current. Then something rises beside the hull. At first, it looks like a floating log, lifting vertically from the water. But it keeps rising. A thick, scaled neck emerges, water pouring off it in heavy streams. The head that follows isn't fully serpent. Its mouth curves like a hardened beak. One pale eye turns and fixes on the boat. The passengers start filming. For a moment, the creature holds perfectly still. Then it slowly sinks straight down again. Swamp sentinel. In the Atchafalaya swamps of Louisiana, two explorers were moving slowly through a narrow cypress channel in a small boat. The air was heavy and still, the water carrying the smell of mud and rot. They had been following strange bubbles rising at steady intervals, as if something below the surface was breathing. When the boat drifted past a cluster of roots, they saw it. A massive, scaled body resting half in the water. Its skin reflected light like wet metal. The head turned slowly toward the boat. No visible eyes, just smooth skin like a helmet. One explorer lifted his phone. For a moment, the swamp went silent. River watcher. Along a quiet bend of the Dniester River in western Ukraine, a wildlife blogger was filming birds moving above the water near sunset. The light was soft and golden, the river surface almost perfectly calm. Then, something appeared along the muddy bank. At first, it looked like a horse, standing still near the reeds. But the proportions didn't match. The neck was far too long, curving upward, like something reptilian. The skin reflected light, with a damp, scaled texture. Its legs ended in wide shapes, half buried in the mud. The head slowly tilted toward the river. The camera held steady. For a moment, everything along the river went silent. Spine drifter. A group of tourists was moving slowly along a quiet stretch of river in a small boat guided by a local operator. The engine was shut off, so everyone could listen to the sounds of the jungle. For a moment, the river was completely still. Then, someone noticed a narrow line in the water, moving against the current. It looked like a crocodile at first, but far too long. And the movement was different. Its body slid forward with perfect precision. Along its back, pale bone structures rose into the air, sharp, symmetrical, like exposed vertebrae. The creature passed beside the boat. No one spoke. The cameras kept recording. Mangrove anomaly. In the mangrove delta of the Mississippi River in Louisiana, a river inspection team was sent to check a sudden blockage in a narrow channel. Water sensors had detected a large moving mass. At first, they assumed it was a fallen trunk. Then, something shifted between the roots. A thick gray body sliding slowly through the mud. Its skin was rough and dark, covered with cone-shaped spines. One technician stepped closer with a camera. The water beneath the creature began to move. Then a deep vibration passed through the swamp. Moments later, the mass slipped quietly back into the mangroves. Thylacine enclosure. In a dimly lit enclosure, a camera records an animal moving slowly along a concrete wall. The body is slender, dog-like, with a stiff tail extending straight behind it. Dark stripes run across its back. The shape is unmistakable, a thylacine, or something that looks exactly like one. The Tasmanian tiger was declared extinct in 1936. Yet this animal is alive, breathing, moving, pacing along the enclosure. At one moment it stops. Its head lifts. A low growl echoes through the room. The camera keeps recording for several seconds. Then the signal suddenly cuts. River climber. In the central jungle of the Pyrenees region, east of the Shanka Hanging Bridge, a group of biology students was walking along the muddy bank of the Tigrillo River during a field excursion. One of them crossed an old wooden bridge ahead of the others. When he looked down, something was rising from the water. A tall figure leaning against the roots of a tree. Its back had the texture of a crocodile, but the posture was upright, almost human. The body moved slowly up the riverbank, a long segmented tail dragging through the mud. The student tried to record it. His phone froze. River mammoth. Along a wide jungle river, a small boat was moving slowly through the current when the person filming noticed something ahead in the water. At first, it looked like a gray wall rising from the river. Then the shape moved. A massive animal, stepping forward through the shallow current. It resembled a mammoth, but far larger than expected. Its tusks curved outward in huge arcs, towering above the waterline. The body was enormous, almost level with the surrounding trees along the bank. Water surged around its legs as it moved. The camera kept recording. River Titan. A helicopter crew was flying low along a wide stretch of the Amazon River during a routine aerial survey. The water below was thick and brown, curving through the dense jungle. At first, the pilot thought it was a sandbar, a dark circular shape disturbing the surface. Then, the water shifted. A massive patterned back rising just beneath the current. Segmented, scaled, enormous. The creature moved slowly through the bend of the river, pushing a wide spiral in the water. From the cockpit window, it looked impossibly large. The pilot steadied the helicopter while someone filmed. For several seconds, the shape remained visible. Then it slipped back beneath the river. River Tusker. A tourist boat was moving slowly along a jungle river when someone at the front pointed toward the water ahead. At first, it looked like a dark shape standing in the current. Then, it moved. A massive animal stepping forward through the shallow river. It resembled an elephant, but the tusks were enormous, curving outward in wide arcs, far beyond the length of a normal elephant's head. Water splashed around its legs as it pushed through the current. Several passengers began filming at once. The animal kept moving toward the opposite bank. Moments later, it disappeared into the trees. River predator. A small boat was drifting along a narrow section of the Amazon River when someone noticed movement in the water ahead. At first, it looked like a dark animal swimming across the current. Then, the head lifted, black fur soaked with river water, short curved horns rising from the sides of its skull. The face looked almost like a lion, but heavier, broader. The animal pushed forward through the muddy water, staring directly toward the boat. Its mane clung to the sides of its head. Water poured from its mouth as it moved. For a few seconds, it held position in the river. Then it turned and vanished into the trees. River Hybrid, a small tourist boat, was moving along a muddy stretch of river deep in the Amazon when people on board noticed something massive near the shore. At first, it looked like a pale rock rising from the bank. Then it moved, a huge creature pushing itself out of the water. Its body looked muscular and thick, unlike anything the passengers recognized. But the head was the strangest part. Long, smooth, curving forward like an enormous beak. The animal lifted its upper body from the riverbank. Several people began filming immediately. The creature turned slightly toward the river. Then it moved back into the jungle vegetation. River Leviathan. A small wooden boat was drifting through a quiet section of the Amazon River when the person filming noticed something massive just ahead. At first, it looked like a dark mound rising from the water. Then the surface shifted, a huge armored back breaking through the muddy current. The skin looked plated, almost like overlapping scales or armor. One long curved spine rose high above the river. The boat kept drifting closer, just the slow motion of the creature beneath the surface. For several seconds, the back remained visible. Then the massive shape slowly sank deeper into the brown water. Forest Relic. Two women exploring a dense section of jungle were filming their walk along a narrow path covered in fallen leaves. The forest was thick, light barely reaching the ground. Then, something moved ahead in the vegetation. At first, it looked like a small tapir crossing the trail, but its back was wrong. Large rigid plates rising along its spine, layered like the armor of an ancient reptile.
This is crazy.
The animal moved slowly through the plants, its body low and heavy, the plates shifting slightly as it walked. One of the women kept filming. Neither of them stepped closer. The creature disappeared quietly into the thick jungle vegetation.